amongst people, I think you'll be able to hear me. You might not be able to see me. Hi Loopy. Just plugging in a guitar. Leave some comments if you can hear me. I'm going to I'll put the screen on when I can see that one or two people have said hi. In the meantime, I'm going to try and play some guitar. That's not making sound. Video, nope, there shouldn't be any video just yet. I'm just tuning up my guitar. Hey Ronch. Hopefully you don't have to pay for streaming. How do you mean pay for streaming? Hey Alec. Okay, right, so this should be us in sound. Should be getting video now, Alec. So hello everyone, hopefully you know I'm John Cordy. Hey Ruben, did you catch my Instagram yet? Who's the guy on the screen? This will be John Cordy. I'm a guitarist, allegedly. Taiwan, cool. How are things in Taiwan? Right, let's try and make some music. Thanks for joining us, Jake. Super helpful always. Hi, Madha. So I just wanted to talk briefly. Haley, I'm doing well. Thanks for posting that legato lick. It's sounding like you're getting there with it. So that was what I was looking for from people, rather than people just trying to blast it out at super speed. I like what you're doing, playing it sensibly and controlled. That's the kind of thing that I like to see from guitarists, unlike what I do. I wanted to just address something. I'm starting to sell merch. I'm joking, it's a joke. But I got a message on a forum from a guy I'm just selling it, in the process of selling a guitar to, called Dave. I was thinking that it might be helpful to try and send him this video at some stage once I've got through the live stream, or you may even be watching, you never know. But he asked about a video that I made, and asked what scales and modes I'm using. It is a question that I get quite a lot, but the main thing is that the answer almost always for me is the major scale, and I guess you lot here have probably heard me harp on about the major scale a lot, but I think it's one of those things that gets overlooked a bit, to be honest. You'd buy some more lesson stuff. You don't need to. I'll make it. Just tell me what you want to know. Yeah, so what I'm thinking is that, well, people jump in with questions and stuff, but scales and modes are not really the answer to almost everything. I think the answer to almost everything is the major scale. You know, if you look at players like Robin Ford, you know, all of these players that we think of, the majority of the time they're not using crazy scales. I was watching a Scott Henderson video last night on the recommendation of someone, great player, playing with Tribal Tech, and although there were spicy bits chucked in here and there, the majority still was the major scale. You know, Alan Holdsworth, there's some crazy stuff there, but again, there's a large percentage of it which is the major scale, and that happens to be the major scale across several different keys, but the majority of music that we listen to happens to heavily feature the major scale, and I'm going to stop saying major scale now. But there was a video last night which I put up which was quite straightforward major scale-y stuff, I think, and I got a question, you know, what scales and modes are you using? So it's one of those questions that I get quite a lot, which I get a little bit confused by, because I don't think my playing sounds particularly out there. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, let's chuck some questions my way. That's enough of my ramble, because it feels like I'm preaching to no one. Request to be cool if you've got any, or stuff you want me to talk about, and if you could hit that little like button, that'd be awesome. I think now that I've started scheduling these, this gets a little bit bit better response. This about the major scale. Yeah, Jake, learn it. Hey Andrew, how you doing? How are things in Texas? This is the major scale. I asked about modal interchange. It's the practice of temporarily borrowing chords from a parallel tonality modality without abandoning the established key. Need to drone what root note? Liked away. Studied the major for a bit. About the modal. If you switch to something like Phrygian with the more Eastern side, you simply play that with the third. Well, so Alec, if we're talking, so if you wanted to play C Phrygian, the note that's key to you droning is C, but you're going to be wanting to make that sound like it's the third note of whatever scale you're using, which would mean we're playing an A flat, right? But my advice is, until you've spent loads and loads and loads of time on the major scale, I don't feel like there's loads to be got out of studying the modes, to be honest. So Madhur, what you're talking about, can you give me an example? Jason, you're not allowed to go get water, so you have to come back. Ruben, I don't know how old you are, but I've been playing guitar since I was 8, and in 2018 I was 29. So so it's taken me a while to get to where I'm at today, if that helps put that into context a little bit. Madhur, can you give me an example, like a concrete example of, like, say you give me the actual chords of what you mean, and I'll completely talk about it what it is then. But written down, it's just an abstract idea to me. I'm sorry if that seems like I'm being rude or something, but the way that I think about music generally is that I hear the thing that you're talking about, and then I can probably put it in my own words or whatever. Yeah, okay, so when I was 19, I've been playing for 11 years. So, hey Kevin, how you doing? Hope you've had a good day, or still having a good day, hopefully. Any update on when the FM3 comes? So Ruben, at that age, I was probably playing the same kind of speed stuff if I wanted to as I am now, but I don't think it would have been particularly interesting playing. It would have been probably quite a lot of up and down stuff. Although I do remember one solo that I wrote back then. And that's about as much as I can remember. Do you think about outlining chords on certain notes when you are going through the changes? Not unless it's specifically using an arpeggio, like on... so if I was to do something where I'm playing like something that comes back to an E minor, so say we're still in B minor, and the progression is starting on an E minor, if I was going to imply that I was playing a B7 before, so like approach chords, then I would be thinking about outlining an approach chord, because there's not enough notes in whatever's happening for me to be able to imply that without outlining the chord. Does that make sense? So if I'm trying to imply something that's not necessarily happening, then I will think about outlining that chord. So in that example, I'm going to come to an E minor. I want to approach it from the B7 to give that sound like it's resolving. In that case, because there wasn't no B7 actually happening, I'm just implying it, then I would outline that. But aside from that, I don't think too carefully about outlining chords. I work on playing arpeggios through standards. That's something I've done quite a lot of in the past. So you might, I don't know, let's pick a standard that's not. So is that a request from Raunch, some melodic minor stuff? Lenny is definitely practicing. If you can hear the flute playing, my mum and dad bought her a flute. That's Liana, that's my girlfriend. At least it's not a dog barking, I guess, right? I guess I could turn. Is the levels okay, by the way? So the first thing I would do to practice melodic minor Raunch is I practice it in two ways. Play Lenny for Lenny. The only Lenny that I know is the Danny Gatton one, which I don't remember how that goes. We're going to get a flute and guitar duo video. I think she's got a little way to go before. So Raunch, what I would do is freeze or loop an altered chord. This is the first way that I recommend experimenting on this stuff. And you have to figure out that kind of sound, get your ear around it, Learn the shape of the scale. This is stuff that I still have to do, by the way, in different ways. So that's with like a static chord. That's going to get you in the world of the melodic minor, because it's not something that we stay in a whole lot of the time. Does that make sense? So the melodic minor is kind of like this little passing world that we go into in the middle of a solo. So it's not a world that we spend loads of time in, so it's worth practicing, because when it comes to playing it in a song, you're not going to get a load of time to play it. So you do that, and then the next thing you want to do with that stuff is to then start experimenting. So I don't know if you saw that video that I put up of going in G, sorry, what am I saying? So if I was playing in G, going between G and like a C minor, so I'd say, yeah, melodic minor is a lot like Chili. If you listen to, you know, kind of Robin Ford, one of the things that people talk about is his melodic minor playing or diminished stuff. But actually, it's not. There's not loads of it happening. He's kind of, yeah, he's like seasoning a solo with it. But if you do use the altered scale on every single opportunity, I think it starts to sound a little bit strange, because it's kind of too much tension, in my opinion. I say that I can't do it myself, so I can only use it in a few places, maybe. So that's my issue. So yeah, practice playing between two chords, one which is the resolve note and one which is the tension chord. So we're going to go between C minor. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, we're going to do like a backdoor 2/5 now that Wes is here. 3, 4, 1, 2. I'm going to have to delete this loop, aren't I? That's a shame. I like that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're in G major over the. This is an altered opportunity, and this is our resolved chord. Yeah, so this is the style of altered material that I like. It's sort of related in a vague way. This is not how I think of it, but how Jacob Collier describes as the negative harmony thing. But this is something that me and Wes have talked about a little bit in email. It's kind of the Stevie Wonder approach of stuff, where you're coming from the other side of the circle of fifths. But basically you're just substituting the 5 for the flat 7, and then like the 4 becomes a minor 4. that's the style of altered chord that I use. I'm not so much one that builds off of, so like in a normal D7, you don't hear me do that sort of thing much. So yeah, that's C minor to G major, it'd be where I might use it, or you know, like the song All By Myself. That's the style of melodic minor that I use. Right, so I need to deal with this. Taking any outside ideas from guys like Herbie Hancock, e.g. playing over a D minor drone, playing D minor scale, then going outside on E major pentatonic and F minor pentatonic. Let's try it. So a D minor drone. In my drone, hold on. Well, maybe I need to give myself a bit more of a groove to just try this concept out. I'm going to turn off a bit of delay, I think. Bypass. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, that's not going to work. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not allowed dinner, Ruben. Get back here. Turn the loop up, yeah. Give me a second. Oh no, I can't. I can only play. I can just play quieter, Kevin. Those are not ideas that I've thought of. But yeah, those are dope. Great ideas. I would the thing that I would do more than that is probably if you're doing, so when I think of outside stuff, yeah, I would just do, I think you might have heard people talk about this like a side slipping kind of idea. So all you're thinking about is shifting the whole pentatonic up one semitone. I do that more than down. Here's Fenton. Does that answer your question a bit? So I really like both of those ideas that you suggested though. And maybe I need to experiment with them. But yeah, the one outside kind of thing that I sometimes would do is to shift like a minor pentatonic up a semitone, or to do like a I guess the altered, not the altered, the tritone sub thing. I sometimes do like if I was playing in D minor, I might do something off of the F, etc. I could pass for Lionel Richie, is sort of my thing. How many guitars do I have? I do get through quite a bit of gear, but I tend to buy things second hand, and then I don't really lose money. Does that make sense? So I don't buy new gear really. I did buy this new, but any tips for starting at basic improvisation? Hey Dave, so I did address your question earlier on. So the answer to your basic question earlier on was that the major scale is kind of where I'm thinking almost all of the time. So it's a question I get asked quite a lot, you know, what scales and modes are you using? Probably 95% of the time, certainly if it's not jazz, it's most of the time, I'm just using the major scale. We're getting somewhere over the rainbow now. So tips for starting at basic improvising. Go on, please. So there's a video that I think might help you, Dave, and it might not seem like it's addressing your question exactly, but it is how I think about guitar. So let me just find this video. And I think this is what I did a lot of when I was younger, and it's what I still do a lot of now. And I think it's what kind of helps with my ear training and all that sort of thing that you hear people talk about. So I'm just going to link you to this. Yeah, I think that's a smart way to buy gear, to be honest. But so in that video, Dave, I talk about melody is kind of, melodies exist, right? And you can kind of recall in your head, hopefully, melodies that you hear on the radio through the day, melodies that you hear from your childhood, stuff that you've seen on on TV, all this stuff. You've got things like this. Right, so hopefully that sort of rings a bell. But when it comes to improvising, all you're doing, in my opinion, is you're trying to select or pick out melodies from the ether. And the way I think that you get better at that is by learning to pick out melodies that already exist. So as much as possible, I think it's worth learning other material, certainly if you're just starting on some ideas and stuff. So early on in my guitar life, I was playing things like Gary Moore and Thin Lizzy and all this sort of stuff. And I wouldn't only play, you know, the guitar bits, but I still do it now, play the melodies of songs. So someone shout a song name out, one that I hopefully will know. But basically the gist of it is that if you can sing a melody, the goal is to be able to also play that melody. Favourite go-to chord progressions? Sorry, Kevin, I didn't answer that question before. I really like the movement from chord 6 to chord 4. And that's me lost. Sorry, so that's yeah, a melody that I think is worth learning. So I did. So obviously I've done that particular song before, but it basically, with any song that I could sing, I can kind of find my way through the melody. This is a Squire. This is a Squire J Mascis. Pierre, I do, yes, in the same way as Gary Moore, for instance, uses the hexatonic scale. So basically, I'm not sure if it's a hexatonic scale as other people might describe it, but it's a scale made of 6 notes. I quite often do it. The reason being that for most chords of the major scale you want to avoid the 4th note. So that leaves you with a pentatonic plus one other note. So in E minor, like we were just in, you have the pentatonic and that F sharp as well. Yeah? Yeah, this is most definitely a Squire. Does that answer your question okay, Pierre? But I guess it's more that I'm using the major scale, but being careful of where I place the F if I was in C major, or the C if I'm in E minor or G major. Does that make sense? Why avoid the 4th? So here's. Let me explain this for you, Dave. Have you found postage, by the way? So you add the 9th note. In G, I would add F sharp. You add the 7th, Kevin. Oh, or the 9th if you're thinking about it from a minor point of view, but I'm not. I'm thinking of it as a G major pentatonic, but starting from an E. So Dave, let me just explain it in C major to start with, because that might be a key you're more familiar with. So in C major, if we harmonize the C major scale, we get this, right? So first of all, you've got a C major scale, yeah? So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. To harmonize in triads, we're going to skip notes and stuff to get 1, 3, 5, and then 2, 4, 6, etc. Does that make sense? Just follow me along and tell me when it's okay for me to move on from a section. So I guess you could hear what was going on. If you were viewing that on a piano, you'd be doing this, essentially. You'd be playing the white keys, and you'd skip a key and play the next key, and then skip a key and play the next key, and you'd move that shape up the keyboard. Does that make sense? Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play each degree of the scale, the triad, and then I'm going to play the F over the top of it. So you hear there's a tension there. Right, so over the C, I have to be careful if I'm playing the F. It's a C sus essentially. So I'd have to resolve that F if it's there. Then D minor has an F in it. So that's not a clash, so we're cool with that. E minor. That's probably one of the worst clashes. So we'd have to treat that one with care. We'd have to either resolve that. The F, obviously that's going to work there. Then over the G, kind of works. It's the seventh, the flat 7 of G, so it works over this A minor. It's kind of a bit of a clash again, and then it's in this B diminished thing. So I guess hopefully you kind of heard some of those chords, the F works and some of them it doesn't. That's why you handle it with care in a progression, or the very good improvisers tend to. Does that make sense? Yeah, Jason, the tremolo system is not necessarily amazing. Luckily I don't really use it, but if you're a trem person, I think people sort of do recommend upgrading the trems. I know certainly the Mexican and American trem systems have like a little locking switch which would be useful for me. So yeah, that's the basis of why I would sort of be careful where I place that 4th degree. It's not something that I'm consciously thinking about so much at this stage, but it is something that I did have to work on. So a shortcut around that would be to use the pentatonic scale, which I think you've been doing. But do you know the pentatonic scale all over the neck? So you know, you might be fairly confident that you know the A minor pentatonic scale. Here, for instance, what about if I was to ask you to play it starting from a G? Would you be familiar then? What if I was to ask you to start it from a C? What if I was to ask you to start from an E and descend? So people have, you know, varying knowledge, and that's all good, but there is a lot you can squeeze out of just the pentatonic scale, and I've discovered some of this on here, you know, on these live stream, like these kinds of chords. The pentatonic scale is not as simplistic as some people kind of make it out to be. There's a lot of richness within the pentatonic scale. I've got a friend, Chris Elphick, who sometimes pops into this stream. He's got a really nice classic vibe Telecaster, the white one with the black binding. I played that. I really like that telly. That's cool, Andrew. I've built 3 of my own guitars. Have you seen Pliny's Guitar World video on repurposing pentatonic scales? I haven't. I'm sure it's good. once I've done 1 or 2 more videos on pentatonic stuff, yeah, Raunch is correct actually. So I have like a few little maps of the fretboard that I kind of think about. One is them in the 7 note per string sense, so you know, like C major, starting from every degree of the scale. And then I also think about the pentatonic boxes that go around that. And to some degree I have a little bit of a map of where the melodic minor that relates to C major fits around it. That's sort of the way that my mind thinks of the guitar. One really nice thing about the J Mascis is it has a satin finished neck, which is just exactly the sort of thing that I like. Any other questions from anyone are welcome, and if you want to hit that like button, if you haven't, that would be cool. Or any kind of requests. Let me try and play this. This is a jazz tune that I've been wanting to record for ages, but I've been putting it off. Sorry, Kevin, you've interrupted me, but what I'm saying is that if you learn your major scale all over the neck, that's one kind of view of the fretboard, yeah? And then you've got your pentatonic box shapes, that's another view, so that's kind of like another fretboard map that you can apply. Does that make sense? That's kind of what I meant. What are you saying, Loopy? Never heard of Ween. When you say learn the major scale, are you thinking in 3 note per string context and seeing how pentatonics overlap those? Yeah, sort of. So if you imagine like you've seen those pictures of the dots all over the fretboard. I mean, those show you all the available kind of notes in a scale. That's kind of what I'm talking about, I guess. Arpeggios are also a cool way to kind of visualize certain things. Dave, so learn one thing at a time. So learning the major scale itself is a whole, you know, big chunk of work. But so start off with one position and spend, you know, a week, maybe longer on that one position. And then when you go to add on another thing, you're just adding on one thing at a time. So it's not something that needs to be done all the way along. Sorry, all at once. Just think about it as you're learning one new thing, you know, a week maybe. So you could play up and down the scale. That's probably what you spend time doing first. Then you might go, okay, I'm going to skip notes and do thirds. that sort of thing. Or you might think I'm going to play triads through the scale. That sort of thing. Okay, so that's just one position. And then you might add one more. So you might say, okay, I know this C major. And then you might go, okay, what else do I know? I know this C pentatonic and the A minor. What if I kind of try to expand that to be the major scale? So you've effectively got C major starting from an A. So that's next week's work. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like if you imagine you're building a bridge, the bridge that you're most familiar with starts here, start building it in other places as well, and so you're kind of trying to build a bridge across the whole neck eventually, but don't think about it like that, just think about it building in one small part at a time. And then that's basically, that's the process. And you can make that into exercises that also work on your technique, so you could alternate pick through each position. So, you know, sequences through scales in each position makes sense as well. So you've got 7 positions to work through as well, don't forget, and 12 keys. So I don't think of caged. I'm not sure really what it is. I think it's this kind of thing. So you've got this C or a G position, a D position, an A position. That's not the way I think. I think 3 note per string. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with caged. I'm just telling you how I think and how I learn. Okay, Kevin, can you put that down somewhere other than this chat as well? Because this kind of gets lost, I think, as soon as I go off of it. But yeah, I can for sure try and do that. Favourite Miles Davis tune, probably So What. Do you guys mind that some of what I'm telling you is kind of already out there, or is it that you want to hear my approach to stuff? Because I'm concerned in some ways that I might just be you know, rehashing stuff that other people have said, so I don't want to be, you know, too kind of redundant. Yeah, that's super great. Okay, so caged is basically the 5 pentatonic boxes, so that would mean that you've got, that's a dog barking. So that A minor one there would effectively be a G-shaped box, right? And then what would that be there? I don't know. That's an E-shaped box, right? For the C of this A minor. And then for the D, I don't know. Is that the A-shaped box there? And that's the D-shaped box. Okay, alright, that makes sense. That's cool. Okay, well, if it's not completely redundant, I'm happy to do stuff. I just, yeah. If it's like stuff where I'm just rehashing things and telling you them in an uninteresting way, I hope someone would tell me. Another good thing to do as well, Dave, is to just take chords that you already know through the scale. Or, so this is a thing that I used to do, like this. So playing, you know, thirds up the neck in that kind of way does really help to kind of visualize how this note that you're going on works, and also what's happening on the next string at the same time. So that kind of helps to visualize the shed some light on, you know, that bridge that you're trying to create. I have my pentatonic scales down, but rarely venture outside of them other than some in and out of major scales. So Andrew, when you say you have your pentatonic scales down, like I'm saying, if I said to you F sharp minor pentatonic, would you be able to start it anywhere on the neck? Is that like the level of comfort? Again, some of the thing about applying. So I like hearing your approach. Wait, where was it? Spend some time to say favourite links yours to improve my own phrasing. I know my theory on a technical level well. Never been great at applying them. So that's theory for me is just labels to things that we know by ear, I guess. Does that make sense? So it's just a label for a thing that exists. So there are sounds which are music, and then the theory is the label. So maybe the issue is to work on playing that thing that you want to hear, or hear that thing that you want to play. Does that make sense? Sort of trying to create that mind guitar link. I don't know, that sounds a little bit weird now that I've said it. Any further questions or requests for stuff? Sorry, that's gone off piece. How you doing? Yeah, so that was me trying to play So What, but with my loop is not long enough to do it properly, so I just had to try and outline the changes. Launch, there are a few things, though. There's a live stream where I was creating the backing track. Dave, if I knew, I'd be doing it. So I created, when you say backing tracks, they're not strictly backing tracks so much. I'm actually kind of just improvising and creating loops that I know will stack over each other. That's been my process for a while now, just because I found that it was a good way to demonstrate the sounds of whatever I'm trying to do, and it was something that made me feel a little bit creative. So if you are interested in seeing those, there's a video with a kind of screen capture of it on my Patreon, or you can see it from my side of the camera, of the screen, as it's happening on a couple of live streams. To me, I wouldn't put modes in basic theory. I think they kind of muddy the water way too much. And also, I don't think modes are necessary to get you through your musical life for the average musician anyway. I think you could quite comfortably, if you have a good knowledge of the major scale, you never really have to confuse issues with the modes. I think it's a little bit of a guitar-centric way of thinking. The A, yeah, that's yeah. So, Kevin, the next logical one to learn for my money would be the one around the D. So, like you know this one. Or you just shift that down. Down one note, or shift it up one note, or go to another kind of area of the neck where you kind of feel comfortable in A. So just add one more position, one that seems logical to you. So if you know a few A chords around here, Hey Dennis, which video do you mean? Are we talking right now? Oh dear. Oh, Denny, sorry. So, right now I'm using the Line 6 Helix. It's what I use on all of my live streams. Yeah, sorry, that was my poor version of Stella. The only bit that I do like that part. Just for reference, I think the modes in England don't come into education for guitarists until grade 8. So all of those other grades that you were doing, I might be wrong about that, but I don't think they do, because I remember I went straight in and did grade 8 when I was, because I had to do it to get into university. That was where the modes were written out for you to learn and stuff. So I think you can get to a fairly advanced stage and you don't even really need to know modes or really care about modal theory. That was sort of the gist of this video that I put up, called Modes Who Cares? Because as I get asked, you know, what modes am I using a lot of the time, I think it comes from a place of people are wondering, oh, what are you doing? But most of the time I'm just using the major scale, and I think that is most of what we hear. And so to educate on modes early on in a guitar career, I don't feel necessarily is the most beneficial thing. And I don't really know where the modes did start to creep into guitar so much. Have you done grades, Jake? Certainly in classical music, the grades don't, the modes don't get talked about. I did up to grade 6 on piano and never discussed modes. If we got any other questions, jump in. Ruben, I really like this Jazzmaster most days. There's been one day that I picked it up and I didn't really feel like I was enjoying it. But other than that, I've enjoyed it every other time I picked it up. I don't think I would. I don't think I would bother to buy another one. Yeah, if you've only done grade 7, that's what I think it only kicks in at grade 8. Denise says perhaps the modes became the thing with Bill Evans and then Miles. maybe, but I don't even think that they were thinking in the same way that guitarists think about modes so much. You know, like for instance, So What that I was playing for a second there. You don't even really have to think in modes to play it with sense over that. Yeah, I don't necessarily like to discuss modes so much either. How would I play the whole tone scale in a 12-bar blues context? I wouldn't. I don't use the whole tone scale. But if I was going to, I would experiment and learn which of the notes I would build it off. So, for instance, if we're playing in A major, I'm going to assume we're going to play it over the 5. So you've got two options. Either it starts off of the right, yeah. So okay, that's where I would build it off of then. So you've got to include the note that you're building the whole tone scale off within the scale. So if I was playing in A major, I build the whole tone scale off of one note above the root, or cheers Jason, hope you got something vaguely useful out of this. Sorry. So that would be what I'd be practicing to do with the whole tone scale. I might yeah, I think there's a lot of sense in the way a lot of other people practice the scales. But the thing is that they don't have to worry so much about positional stuff, right? So I think because we have to communicate, if we're teachers, that there's 7 places to play the major scale, or 7 variations. You know, you can start from the G, the B, the C, and you know, because there's, you know, sort of 6 places to play each note, so a C, etc. I think that's why modes become sort of the crutch to explain that. Perhaps, Denny, maybe that's why it's the case. But like you say, sax players practicing the scales. To me is a useful way, but also remember that something that a sax player might not have to think about is that you've got a that's the same thing but played on a different place in the neck. That to me makes sense. So Johan, the thing about the modes thing is it's just another lens to view normal major scale stuff that happens anyway. Yeah, Kevin, I think working on one thing really deeply is more useful than glossing over lots of stuff. So even if you worked on just one position or one chord, and worked on it, worked on it a lot, then you'd be in a better place than if you'd, not really focused on anything or tried to do too much. And Jake and Johan, I've listened to both of you play. I don't necessarily feel like you're missing out on much by not using modal theory. I think with a lot of this stuff, it's good to be guided by your ear. And I know there are people that think in different ways as well, so that it might be that you're more of an analytical thinker, and for you, modes, it absolutely makes sense for you to kind of pick apart every chord and think in a modal way. But I think you'll know quite quickly and early on whether that approach works for you, or if you're more of a feel player. In which case, if you're already, feeling like you can make music that you want to make, yes, there's other stuff that you could be doing, but I don't think it makes sense to try and work on everything. So like Ashan asked me about playing the whole tone scale. Although I know some of the theory behind it, it's not something that's in my playing, because I've not chosen to focus on it. So just don't worry about it so much. If you do find that you want to think modally, you'll find yourself looking them up. One way to test, I guess, if you think you know the modes, or whether you have some sort of modal control, would be to take your root note, or take a note, so take a C, and if you know the modes of the major scale, you'll be able to make that C sound like it's any other degree of the scale. So let's try and make it sound like it's Locrian. Now I'm going to try and shift to make that C feel like it's the 4th degree of the scale. So basically what I'd say is, if anyone tells you you need to learn modes, I'd sort of question that. There's loads and loads of professional musicians that I know that have no grasp on modes at all. There's some I know that do, but I don't think it particularly has a massive bearing on how you succeed as a musician. It wouldn't be a bad thing to dive into, but I wouldn't bother diving into it unless it was something that was drawing you to dive into it. So I've heard you play today, and it doesn't sound to me like there's a deficit in your playing. So unless there's something that's calling you to want to play in a different way, or you know, there might be a time when it's right for you to sit down and look at a book and figure out whether you care about what C Lydian is. No, so what I was doing there, Kevin, was I was playing a C, and I was playing the notes around that C to make that C feel like it's another degree of the scale. So if I want to make it feel like it's the 4th degree, I have to play in G major, right? If I want to make it sound like it's the 6th degree of the scale, I have to play in E flat major. So the thing that stays constant is the C, the thing that's moving is everything around the C. That to me is how I think of modes. But I don't really want to get into it too much because, as I say, it's not really the way that I think. But if you are a person who wants to have control of modes, that's kind of one of the things that you want to aim to get your head around, I'd say. So take a static note and be comfortable trying to make that sound like everything else. So take that C. Can we make that C feel like it's the 1? So yes, so make the C feel like it's the 1 by playing in C major. Can we make the C feel like it's the 2? Yes, we can make the C feel like it's the 2 if we play in B flat major. Can we make the C feel like it's the 3? Yes, we can. We play in A flat major. Can we make the C feel like it's the 4? Yes, we play in G major. Can we make the C feel like it's a chord 5? Number 5. Yes, we play in F. Can we make the C feel like it's... yeah, we've done everything now, haven't we? So one way is to think about it modally, or the other way is to think that you need to have a fairly good grasp of the major scale all over the neck in every key, and then you'll get the same result. Yeah, Jake, you're saying the same thing as what I'm saying. I just did all of it. Yeah, so Ruben, essentially what you're doing now is you're still thinking C major, so you're just thinking positionally, which is also fine. So some guitarists will. So this is again part of the teaching thing that I think is why people are thinking modally when perhaps they don't need to. But like Ruben's just said there. In C, when you're playing over G, you're thinking G Mixolydian. So for me, I would just be thinking it's it's C major, but starting from a G. But yeah, there are plenty of other ways to think about this stuff, by the way. This is just how I think about stuff. But a good knowledge of the major scale is what will get you jobs. Why did you think we disagreed on it? We don't disagree on it. Okay, well, Juice, if that's kind of jiving with you, as I say, that video that I've linked hopefully makes sense. But again, Ruben, I've heard you play, and it's not like there's a deficit in your playing, so it's not something to worry about. So even, you know, there's going to be plenty of people that think about modes in different ways to me. But that's just the way I view it. I have a very kind of major scale centered approach to guitar, which I think is useful given that most of what we play as musicians is based on a major scale. And things that tend to be connected, and the more kind of theory stuff you do, you get to realise like there's these connections everywhere. I have written some of this stuff down, and I think I may try to, when I come to do the major scale lessons or content, oh yeah, there's a new chords video, Kevin. I'd also like people to I don't know, maybe film themselves inserting some of those chords in places where you wouldn't expect them. That wasn't meant to sound as bad as it did. Ashan, what you want to practice is playing kind of phrases. Ruben, I don't think it's your style of playing either. I think your style sounds to me like you are a fan of Matthias Asato, which is a good thing. If it sounds like you're playing scales when you're improvising over something, it's probably because you're playing scales. I would think melodically. So there's a video that I've linked in the chat where I talk about what it means to play melodically, in my opinion. And I think that is that you need to practice playing melodies. So melodies exist all around us. I said this earlier in the video. In songs that you heard in your childhood. Sorry, that was my chair making a noise. In television adverts, in phone ringtones. So let's try. Like that sort of thing, just working out that. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but has a real benefit if you just do those sort of things. But yeah, so that sort of stuff. Just play melodies is my general advice. It can't hurt. It's useful to practice your scales, but you don't want that to be the crux of your practice. I would say learn the positions, and that's going to take a lot of running up and down the scale and, you know, doing different things up and down the scale, but really that's like a platform for finding melodies. So try and find melodies within those positions. I think I'm going to have to go very shortly because I need to eat some food. So hopefully this has been somewhat helpful in a weird sort of way. Thank you, but really trying to believe just like my name bends double stops so you look out as you feel me. That's cool, Ruben. Yeah, well, just work on what you want to work on. And also, the thing is that you'll end up sounding like you anyway. So there was a stage when I thought I wanted to have like John Petrucci's alternate picking, you know, the tapping of someone else. You know, maybe I wanted to sweep pick like someone else. But you'll find that eventually you'll settle, hopefully, into kind of your style, and that will evolve over time as well. But the important thing is to stay making music, really. The Facebook group idea. Do we like that idea? I don't know. Could just do it on my yeah, the issue with Facebook for me is that everything takes ages to load on it, because there's so much stuff. But I mean, you're welcome to do it if you want to. You could slag off my playing on there. But the Patreon is there. Johann's already a member. I know most of you guys on here are. Is the melodic video the one above? Let me find the melodic video again. Sorry. Here's the video on playing melodically. Yeah, so that's the place. Sorry, I don't know what's just happened. I might have just ended the stream by accident. Oh dear. So, yeah, what was I saying? Yes, play melodies. So, you know, this is a thing I was doing with Ruben yesterday. You know, we can remember songs from our childhood, we just play them. Yeah, if you want to tag me in videos of you playing my stuff or over my backing tracks on Instagram, I'll always share them in my story. Because that helps me, I think, and hopefully it's vaguely enjoyable for you to know that I'm watching your stuff. I don't know, I'm not really sure how that works, but yeah. Yeah, so do that. If you've got videos of you playing over my backing tracks and that, just tag me in them on Instagram. I'd like to see that stuff. If you could have a look at the chord video, I think hopefully there's a few little useful chords. Here's one that I can sometimes play. That's a fun one for you all. But yeah, if you have ideas for stuff you want to read, what am I talking about? It's clearly getting a bit much. Want me to make videos on, do as Kevin has done and ask for them. Leave a comment somewhere on the channel. If you've got mates who play guitar, it helps me if you could share me around a little bit so that more than 3 people see my stuff. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining in. I hope this was in some way useful. And Johann, really enjoyed you playing earlier on today. Thanks for sharing that with me. Yeah, the dead spider. Right, see you later, Jake. Yeah, I've got some tomorrow. I can't remember what I'm going to be doing a video on. I think it's going to be stuff that I've been wrong about, because I thought that might be a vaguely interesting idea. Should we do a similar sort of time this evening, tomorrow evening, if you guys are around? Cheers, Raunch. Thanks for stopping in and contributing. Yeah, thank you everyone, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, Denny. Cheers, Kevin.